I can't keep running away from it. It's time for me to finally come back to talk about Amphibia. But before I begin, I need to tell you a story, because unless you've been watching me for ages, you probably don't know my history with this show. In 2021, I came to the realization that I am bisexual. This obviously led to me exploring queer spaces online, and that Pride Month I learned about a little show with a bisexual lead called The Owl House. I immediately fell in love with the show and needed more, so I decided to watch that Gravity Falls show I had always heard about, but had never gotten around to watching, since Owl House fans seem to love it too, and what a surprise, I did end up loving it. Another show I kept hearing people talk about was some random show about frogs, and for the third time in a row, I loved it. And when season 3 began, I just loved it even more. I always saw people being upset with the first half of season 3, and that made me really angry, because I was just loving every second of it, and Froggy Little Christmas easily became my favorite episode of the show. When it was announced that the Owl House season 2B and Amphibia season 3B would be airing side by side, I was ecstatic. The day came, I watched Follies at the Coven Day Parade, I absolutely loved it. I watched Escape to Amphibia, and I thought it was just as good as Froggy Little Christmas. It got me so hyped for what was to come next. Fast forward a week, Elsewhere Elsewhen was peak, and then Commander Ann and Spivey were kind of mid. Okay, surely this is just a little stumble. The show's been good so far. There's no way Amphibia would fall off right at the end, right? Yeah, I did not like Amphibia Season 3B. I thought it was filled with character degradation, a complete 180 on the show's themes, and I despised The Hardest Thing with a passion. But my old opinions do not matter. I reviewed the whole show back when it ended, but those old videos kinda sucked, so now I will be going back to the show, and I'm going in with a completely open mind. I don't like to hate things, and even if I do still end up hating the ending, I will put some actual effort to properly explain my thoughts instead of just going on an angry rant. So without further ado, let's see if I was wrong about Amphibia. Season 1 is incredible. Rewatching these episodes all these years later made me just so damn happy. I love this season so much. I've thought this for years, but to me, the best part of Amphibia is the comedy. It's genuinely one of the funniest cartoons I've ever watched, and that's due to a variety of factors. Of course, the actual writing is a big one, but both the animation and the incredible voice cast elevated to peak comedy. I'm constantly quoting this show's jokes, down to the very specific way the actors deliver their lines. And, well, trying to do their faces, but that's kind of impossible. But being a boring real person instead of a cartoon doesn't stop me from quoting, "I don't want to live on this planet anymore. Have you killed a man, huh, Pop? I don't feel safe," and many more daily. But the quality of the writing, voice acting, animation goes far beyond the comedy. Something that really gets me mad is when people treat this season as the filler season, when to me it's easily the best season of the 3. Anne's character arc over the course of these episodes is fantastic. I love the way Anne or Beast establishes her compassionate nature from the beginning, and then Best Front shows us the way Sasha's manipulation has affected her, long before we would explicitly see that. It works great both as setup for Anne and Sasha's relationship, and as a way to build Anne and Sprig's relationship. Sasha's bad behavior led to Anne having a toxic view on friendship, where she believed she needed to do everything Sasha wanted. But with Sprig, now she has a friend who shows genuine joy from spending time with her, rather than simply using using her as a way to get what he wants. Sprig himself is also an awesome character. I really love his lively, fun-going personality, as well as his insane dedication to Anne. Polly is mostly there just for the comedy this season, but she fulfills that role very well. Hop-Hop is probably the funniest character in the show though. The first half of season 1 has almost perfect pacing. On a surface level, these episodes seem to be mostly basic, episodic, unconnected stories, but when you take them as a full package, they are all needed to truly appreciate this story. We see Anne's growth from being an immature person who doesn't want to put in the work to actually achieve her goals, and someone who focuses too much on changing who she is to get people to like her, to someone who takes full responsibility for her mistakes when nobody would have had any way of finding out, and becoming Wartwood's Frog of the Year simply for being her true self. Even the episodes that don't seem deep at first, like Cane Crazy, Anne Theft Auto, Breakout Star, and Anne vs. Wild, end up being vital to Anne's arc. Simple slice of life stories like these are great at showing a character's growth as a person, and it's not just Anne on her own. We see how the Planters, and eventually the rest of Wartwood, all grow attached to her. Episodes like Hopluck and Lily Pad Thai are great examples of episodes where other characters help Anne grow, but she helps them to grow. Getting to see the positive impact she has on this community, like revamping Stumpy's, and also just her general interactions with the town, are what make Toe Tax and eventually End of the Year so satisfying. The townsfolk of Wartwood are very fun. Wally is really funny, and Wally and Anne is a great episode that's another example of how the townspeople help Anne grow, with Wally helping Anne to not be bothered by others looking down on her. Ivy doesn't really do much, but her and Sprig are genuinely adorable. Like, really adorable. The wonderful vibe of these episodes can also be greatly felt in the show's theme song and credits, which probably sounds weird since these both give off pretty different vibes, but both perfectly capture a different part of the show. The theme song represents the more fun and adventurous side of the show, with the credits representing the nice, sweet character focus. TJ Hill is just so good. His music throughout this entire show is incredible. Anne's theme is genuinely one of my favorite character themes ever. Unfortunately, the second half of the season is slightly weaker, but I do mean slightly. And that's mainly because of the Big Bug Bowl game and Children of the Spore. The Big Bug Bowl game would have been a perfectly fine episode if it was placed earlier on, but Anne is just way too self-centered here when she's meant to have grown out of this kind of mindset for a while now. As for Children of the Spore, now Anne, as well as Sprig, Polly, and Hop Hop all feel out of character. Anne, Polly, and Sprig have never really acted out like this. And really, Hop Hop, you're just gonna spread some unknown substance you got from a really suspicious guy on your kids? Did you forget that products that sound too good to be true usually aren't true at all? I don't hate or even really dislike these episodes. Like, how could anyone hate the Big Bubble game? It has Chuck!
I grow tulips.
They're just a bit eh. Fiddle Me This is another episode I think falls a little bit flat, but in this case I do really like the concept. I just think there needed to be actual consequences for the way Hop Hop pushed Sprig so hard. That big bat swooping down and nearly eating Sprig wasn't really Hop Hop's fault. If it was anyone's fault, it was Anne, who made the costume that attracted it to Sprig. So the message doesn't really work. And as a result, the episode feels like a weaker version of Sadie's song from Steven Universe. Other than those small gripes, the rest of the season is still really great. I like that the first half is mostly dedicated to the characters, in particular the main four, while the second half is a lot more about delving into the rest of the citizens of Wartwood and world building. We got our first reference to Newtopia in Fiddle Me This, and Bizarre Bazaar gives us our first hints towards the mystery behind the music box. The world building this season is also less about the physical world and more about how this world's society functions. Season 1 does a great job at showing the class system of Amphibia. We mostly see the working class frogs and the toads who serve as a military force, but the newt's position as the rich upper class is also touched upon. Albert Stockweed is clearly someone who looks down upon poor institutions, and he holds a lot of influence in the world of restaurants. Trentonio doesn't really fit with the rest of the newts in the show, and the same goes for Valerina, but Newtopia's brief mention does establish a clear link between newts and higher education, so that upper class aspect to Amphibia is very present. Yeah, I'm literally just Marcy when it comes to Anne and the Planters. I love the found family trope! Just like how Anne grows as an individual over each event of the season, the evolution of her familial bond with Sprig, Hop-Up and Polly is paced really well, with early episodes establishing the dynamics between them, and then showing a gradual build-up of trust between them, leading to them being more open to each other, like Hop-Pop emotionally opening up about missing Charlie Big Bottom, and more importantly, Anne being more open about her not being able to handle the extreme camping. And it's only after this, and the Planters showing compassion towards her, that she's built up enough trust with them to finally show them the Calamity Box. But there's still two very important episodes I've yet to mention. Prison Break and Reunion. I hate Sasha. She gets me really mad, but that's kind of the point. I do think she's a brilliantly written character. I talked about how the show has shown the way Sasha has impacted on Anne's character, but none of that would really be clear without actually seeing her manipulation at work, pretending to be nice to the Toads to get them to leave, and showing her lack of care for Anne and Marcy by deciding to side with the ruthless Captain Grime instead of actually trying to help them, or how she shows no regard for Marcy when Anne asks if she's seen her. That end of discussion bit is definitely the most explicit example of manipulation. I like that she's written to not be subtle about it at all. She claims to want to give Anne an amazing birthday, while completely shutting down Anne's own wants and desires. She allows the Planters to travel with her and Anne, but that little pause before her allowing it makes it clear she's only doing this to stay on Anne's good side. She waits for the Planters to leave before attempting to villainize them in Anne's eyes, but she does it in a way that makes it pass off as just a bit of fun banter, so Anne isn't immediately turned off. Reunion is so good. Anne's main character arc this season was mostly over by toe tax, but it's not fully realized until she is finally able to stand up to the person who had been holding her back. She now has built up a real friendship with not only the Planters, but the whole town of Wartwood, and having that real connection is what allows her to win. I love this episode so much, and then Lean On Me starts playing. Back when I first watched this in 2021, I immediately burst out laughing, and the same has happened on every single rewatch. Like, you can't play a licensed song with lyrics over the top of important dialogue. This scene could have been amazing. I've talked about how awfully Sasha has treated Anne, but I still really feel for Anne. She still wants a friendship with her. Plus, Anne is actually a good person who doesn't want her to die. And this shot is genuinely beautiful, but it's all ruined by that fuck-ass song. Why couldn't TJ Hill have just made the music for this? If you replace Lean On Me with something by him, this scene would have been like 1 billion times better. But despite that, Amphibia Season 1 is still so fucking good. I have a few little issues with it, but even though my biggest issue was with the finale, when I finished it, I was smiling like a dummy. Who cares that there's a few episodes where the main cast act out of character, or that there's a horribly placed licensed song in what should be the emotional climax of the season? That doesn't take away from Anne's beautifully paced arc, the wholesome as fuck found family storyline, or the hysterical comedy. Amphibia Season 1 is brilliant, and it's also the best season of the 3. Season 2 is very good. I used to have somewhat mixed feelings on it, with those feelings leaning more towards positivity. But even though I still think Season 1 is a better overall package, I came out of this rewatch really loving Season 2. When it comes to second seasons and sequels, you no longer have to worry about establishing as much, and instead can dedicate more time to expanding upon what has already been established. However, I really wish we got more of that in this season. season. There is definitely a lot of world building here, and I do like what we got. All these little towns are really cool and creative, but if you actually look at the continent of Amphibia, all we see in the show are Frog Valley, Newtopia, the land between them, and the 3 temples. That's barely any of it. But let me be a bit more positive. I really like how the season shows the aftermath of Reunion. Anne's journey across the season, trying to cope with what happened between her and Sasha, is amazing. It's incredibly messy and not a boring set linear plot, with Anne and Sasha on a steady path to healing their relationship. I especially love how the planters are worked into this. It's a very complicated situation, so I'm glad they don't just all agree to say, yes, Anne must fix this. They struggle with how to feel. All they know about Sasha is her being evil and trying to murder them, but they also deeply respect and trust Anne, who knows Sasha much better than they do. So do they just go with their own experiences, or do they believe Anne when she says there is a good person somewhere in her? But even their trust in Anne doesn't help them very much, since Anne is deeply conflicted herself, being pulled between how awful Sasha has treated her and all those times where she felt like there was a real friendship, but now she doesn't even know if those moments of friendship were even real. So because of their lack of experience of Sasha, combined with Anne's own conflicted mind, the planters hold much more of a grudge. Sprig even more so, despite Hop Pop being the main target of Sasha and Grime. Since being older, Hop Pop is a lot more mature and more likely to see the complexities of the situation. I have a lot to say about Sasha, but my biggest issue with her doesn't really become apparent until next season. All I'll say for now is that I like what was being set up here. I think there were some really amazing things being done thematically, with how she continued to get worse and worse as Anne got better and better. I really like the last few episodes, and how they build up this tension. Sasha once again manipulates Anne to regain her trust, only to betray her all over again, completely breaking her in the process. It starts to get kind of irritating. She does show many signs of regret, especially in Battle of the Bands, where I feel it's safe to say she was genuinely sorry for how she acted at the beginning of the episode, and was having an actual good time playing the banger that is no big deal with Anne and Marcy. But that just makes all the times she does go ahead and betray her friends so much more infuriating. I don't put all the blame on her, but I want to save the rest of that for when I get to Turning Point. At least it's really funny to see the planters just rage baiting Sasha for the entirety of the dinner.
That top bit's where Anne chose us, you know, over her friendship with Sasha.
Oh, and there she is letting go of Anne's hand and plummeting to her possible death. It's a tree! You morons! A tree!
That will always be hilarious. That's one thing the show can never do wrong. It's always funny as fuck. I'm once again constantly getting a giggle out of, not the baby! I'm a tooth, that's the truth. I am the Time Lord now. If anyone needs me, I'll be in the kitchen drinking juice. I didn't want the baby carrots, Mom! Can you miss someone you never actually knew? Wait, that's not funny. Yeah, Hopping Mall is pretty damn peak. Everyone loves to praise its ending, and rightfully so. It's a great way of confirming to the audience something we could all figure out pretty well. But the focus isn't really on the event itself. That was saved for after the rain. This is about Anne and Sprig, bringing them closer as friends by bonding over their shared desire to see their mum again.
You know, I've always wondered, can you miss someone you never actually knew?
Genuinely might be my favorite line in the show, and its impact is greatly elevated by having Anne simply pull him into a hug. She doesn't need to say anything, she simply needs to be there for her friend and let him cry his heart out. All while TJ Hill continues to break my heart with those beautiful strings and that gorgeous piano during the credits. All of that is great. But none of it would have been as impactful without the rest of the episode, about the love shared between mothers and their children. That scene where Anne lets Priscilla keep the teapot is really sweet. I especially love how it doesn't take her much convincing to accept it back. If she had been super insistent on Anne winning the Derby fair and square, and therefore being the one who should keep it, it would have made it seem like she didn't actually care that much about her mother's work. The only possible thing that could have made this even better is if we actually got to see Anne give her mum Pearl's butterfly. But even though that would have elevated this episode, I don't think the show not showing it to us makes this episode worse. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but it doesn't really matter because that's a discussion for season 3. Now I'm gonna do a bit of a rapid fire through a bunch of little things I want to talk about, but I couldn't find a way to naturally bring them up. Marcy is great, I love her. She's so fun and silly and autism and great and amazing, and she's Marcy fucking Woo. Anne is based for hating licorice, but I still hate her for what she said about pineapple on pizza last season. I'm so full of Transformers brain rot that when I saw the veggie monsters combine in Handy Ann, my first thought was, holy shit, that's like a combiner. Marcy is meant to be super smart, but for some reason she didn't immediately recognize that this symbol meant west. Like, girl, this is the most obvious clue imaginable. Is she stupid? Anne gave a child PTSD. Realistically, Maddie should have killed her sisters by throwing them to the ground from so high up. Frobo was a little bit unsatisfying. I don't dislike him, but for how he was set up and constantly making little appearances, I was kinda expecting more from him. A caravan named Desire basically has the same plot as the movie Muppets Most Wanted. A bunch of shows being put on in various locations that are secretly just diversions for a bunch of robberies. This show is literally all about frogs too, and a later episode just straight up has Kermit. They knew what they were doing here. I love General Yunnan, Scourge of the Sand Wars, defeater of Ragnar the Wretched, the youngest new to ever achieve the rank of General in the Great Utopian Army, and Toucher of Grass in 1 minute and 45 seconds. Hop Hop explicitly calling Anne his adoptive granddaughter is wholesome as fuck. Sprig knows how to pick a lock, which is just a little concerning. A Day at the Aquarium is a beautiful episode. And of course I have to mention Wax Museum, for both being a really fun crossover-ish episode with another show I love, but more importantly, for being the reason I even watched Amphibia to begin with. Seeing a clip of this episode is what convinced me to finally check it out. Alright, rapid fire period over. Last time I talked about the way Anne grew as a person through her influence on others, and that's felt even more this season. I already mentioned Priscilla and Pearl from Hopping Mall, but Scavenger Hunt is one of the best examples of this, as it's also used to expand upon her relationship with Marcy, and shows how well they work together. We know Anne is great at bringing out the best in people. This episode shows that pretty explicitly, but it's not simply about how Anne can easily befriend random people in Utopia, but rather how Anne's ability to connect with others, being combined with Marcy's general intelligence, is the only way they were able to succeed. Anne has seen much growth over the series, but she's still caught up in this mindset that she has to be someone she isn't. She sees how Marcy and Sasha are strong in their own ways, believing she needs to have those same exact strengths, but that's not realistic. She already has her own strengths that couldn't help her solve the puzzle, but Marcy's strength that she looks up to so much couldn't either. It's only when they work to both of their natural strengths together that they are able to succeed. So, the temples. I surprisingly don't have too much to say. I already said everything I really have to say about the third when I was talking about Sasha. The second is a great episode on its own that's kind of made worse in retrospective. Why does Valerina let Anne power up the stone if she knows what's going to happen? Is she stupid? The first temple is the only one I really have much to say about, and even then, it's more about the previous episode, After the Rain. I deeply appreciate that this arc between Anne and Hop-Up was multi-episode. They could have very easily wrapped it up in After the Rain. Hop-Up's explanation as to why he buried the box would have made for a totally fine way for Anne to reconcile with him. She already knows that Sprig and Polly lost their parents very early on, and the events described to her were obviously very traumatic for Hop-Pop, so Anne naturally has no issue believing he truly did it to protect Sprig and Polly. But it doesn't matter how much Anne understands why Hop-Hop did what he did, it doesn't take away from the fact that in trying to protect his biological grandkids, he still hurt his adopted grandkid. The first temple being a 22-minute episode also benefits this arc really well, since that longer runtime allows the healing process to, well, last longer, and therefore be more realistic. But now, let's get to True Colors and Andreas. Oh man, I'm gonna be ranting a lot about this guy once we get to season 3. Here's a full list of things I like about the character of King Andreas Leviathan. Number 1, his voice. Number 2, that's it. Keith David and later Zeno Robinson are great voice actors, but they can't save him from being a shit character. You're really telling me this guy just had this super evil mural just under a sheet? I was gonna ask what his plan was if someone found it, but the real question is, how has no one found it? It's not even really hidden. He also just completely ignores Frobo at first. It seems like he doesn't even notice Frobo until the ending. Why did he stab Marcy and then not grab the box from her? He just stands there for seconds and lets her drop it into the portal. Is he stupid? Was it just so the episode could have some cheap shock value that doesn't really work when it happens just minutes after 2 other fake out deaths? At least he isn't a terrible twist villain. His first scene makes it very clear that he is up to no good. Wait, I was meant to save my Andrea strand for later. Look, I know I was just really negative, but trust me when I say that I still think True Colors is an amazing episode. Especially the first half. The scene of Anne blowing up at Sasha is unbelievably satisfying. Brenda Song's line delivery is perfect. You can really feel her rage.
You're a horrible person, and I am done being friends with you. Oh, snap.
This episode also has one of my favorite shots in the entire show. Even if this scene is just Sasha being a moron by not telling Anne about Andres immediately, god damn it, she is the most annoying character ever. And while the second half is weaker due to the issues I mentioned, I really like both the Marcy reveal and Anne's powers. Marcy's reveal works so well because of how the previous episode set it up. Of course there's Day at the Aquarium where she starts off trying to keep Anne with her, but also things like this line from the first temple.
We don't have a choice, Anne. You want to get home, right?
Notice how she says you instead of we, subtly hinting towards the fact that she doesn't want to go back to Earth. Even if I don't like how many fake out deaths are in this episode, I can accept Spriggs because it leads to Anne's power scene, which is incredible. Mostly because TJ Hill absolutely pops the fuck off with the music. And even if I hate the Marcy stab for being cheap shock value, which could have left a sour taste in my mouth after finishing the season, getting hit with the season 3 intro right after got me so hyped. This finale has many flaws, but the good definitely outweigh the bad. And now, it's time to talk about the final season of this great show. A season I have such mixed feelings on that I almost always talk about it as 2 separate seasons. Amphibia Season 3 is very fascinating. You may have noticed in the last 2 videos in this series, I didn't go that in depth with Season 1 and 2, but Season 3 is different. This is the one I have by far the most to say about. So let's begin with the new normal. This episode is great. I can still remember watching that opening scene that got released early over and over again, getting so hyped for the episode to release. And it absolutely lived up to that hype. This is really what the show needed. Keeping Anne and the planters in Amphibia after Andrea starts being all evil would have kind of been lame. Putting them on Earth introduces something new. The planters get hands-on experience with the world Anne has always told them about, and how that world would react to them. Keeping them away from the action helps to focus on the characters rather than the plot. That's not to say plot isn't important, because it obviously is, but Amphibia is an extremely character-driven show. It also just makes more sense pacing-wise. If Anne was in Amphibia, Andreas would have had a much easier time killing her, so we need this to realistically keep her and the planters away from him. And speaking of Andreas trying to kill Anne, I love Cloakbot. Cloakbot actually might be my favorite villain of the show. I think it's got something to do with its design. So sleek and elegant, yet sinister and deadly. Back to that scene everyone, including myself, was watching on repeat as we waited for this episode to come out. It's probably one of the best scenes in the show. Something I've never seen people talk about is how when we first see Mrs. Boonjoy, she's naturally very sad, implying that this has been her default mood ever since Anne disappeared. But as soon as she hears a knock at the door, you can hear in her voice that she's masking those feelings and trying to appear happier.
I'm coming.
I really love that little detail. Even though her mum had appeared in a few flashbacks before, this is our first time really seeing the relationship between all 3 of them, rather than just hearing about it. I really like the way Mr. and Mrs. B interact with the planters at first. Or more specifically Hop Pop, since he's been Anne's parental figure for all these months. It's a great way of showing not only Anne's growth, but how her parents really care about her. Realizing how important these weird frog people mean to Anne and wanting to see their daughter happy is the first stepping stone to them seeing that change in her, as it leads to all the other events that take place across the season. The new normal was the first time we got completely revamped credits. I really love it. I still prefer season 1's credits, I think, but season 3's are just so fun. And while it did play at the end of True Colors first, Pop to Your Drop was the first episode with the new theme song, and this is easily my favorite variation of it. The instrument choices are a big reason for that. I love the use of electric guitar. It's great at reflecting this season's more epic scale, but it keeps it from feeling generically epic like a big orchestra would. It still has that fun, upbeat feel Amphibia is all about. I don't have much to say about the episode itself. It's a nice way to show the planters in new situations. The thing I really like about it though, as well as season 3A as a whole, are the background humans. They might actually be the funniest characters of the entire show. I love the acronym-obsessed security guard, that lady who seemingly breaks the fourth wall. Seriously, who is she talking to? And our main characters still get peak comedy.
Pop-Pop, why are you green?
None of this compares to Sprig's birthday, which has by far the funniest scene in the entire show to me. You all know what I'm talking about, we all love it. These humans are the funniest motherfuckers to ever exist.
I just don't know what to do. Should I quit my office job to pursue my passion of stand-up comedy?
Lord, send me a sign. Hey, have you guys heard the one about the lady who probably just made a really bad decision?
The only other episode to make me laugh this much is Turning Point.
Whoa, Nelly!
Present!
Shut up, Nelly!
It's not even an amazing joke or anything, it's really not that funny, but this somehow just completely fucking killed me on rewatch. As for Turning Point as a whole, well, I did tease this when talking about season 2, so I guess I have to talk about it now. It's no secret that I really don't like Sasha, but it wasn't until this rewatch that I fully realized my issue with her. My biggest issue with the character of Sasha Elizabeth Waybright is technically not even about her, it's Grime. Grime is such a baffling character to me. This is a show filled with manipulators. All three of the Calamity Trio are shown being manipulated by someone, which results in them doing bad things and then eventually standing up to them. Anne was always being manipulated by Sasha to doing things she didn't want to do. Marcy was manipulated by Andreas into hiding the truth about the music box from Anne and Sasha. And Sasha was manipulated by Grime into being a goddamn war criminal. He is the one who got her to stay at Toad Tower instead of searching for her friends. He is the one who wanted her to fake being nice to Anne and Marcy so they could overthrow the throne. He has been purely a negative to Sasha as a person. She was bad before, but he very clearly made her worse. She really needed to cut him off completely. It would have made her allying herself with Wartwood, who have been terrorized by the Toad armies forever, way more satisfying. Cutting off the person who made her an even worse friend and siding with the people that friend cares so much about. Grime could have stayed in the story and assisted with the resistance, but Sasha really shouldn't have stayed so friendly with him. This episode also has one of the dumbest lines in the show.
Then we'll have to go somewhere he doesn't expect.
What the fuck are you talking about? Wartwood would be like the first place Andreas would look. What are you talking about? And why did Anne leave so much stuff behind if she thought she was going home, including her journal? This episode just really surprised me. I know I just complained a bunch, but I genuinely really liked it. I never really disliked it, but ignoring some nitpicks and the big toad in the room, I now think it's really fucking good. I think Sasha's regret is actually well handled. She hates herself and treats herself like garbage, but she doesn't make herself out to be a victim. She gets annoyed with Wartwood at first, but not because of a dislike towards them, and she doesn't get all rude with anything like that. She feels real regret and puts in real effort to truly gain the town's trust. Most of the time, the two small episodes within a full episode don't have too much connecting them, so I really like how Thai Feud and Adventures in Cat Sitting both deal with a similar topic surrounding the relationship between the planters and the Boonchoys. I love that scene at the end of Adventures in Cat Sitting, both for being a really great and sweet moment of bonding, but also because it's one of the few times the show doesn't put Mr. Boonchoy through pain, something that's shockingly common.
Dang it! The backyard! Oh, the driver always gets left out of the group hug. Can you guys just imagine I'm there? Oh, my back!
My man cannot catch a break, and this compilation is still not over.
That's because you drive like an old man. Move over. Another day, another adventure resolved with no loose ends.
And come on, when is this balloon ride supposed to be over? Do I smell cookies? I'm gonna need to be quick on the draw if I want to capture us. Oh my goodness! Gosh dang it! I will get the perfect holiday photo, or I will die trying! I'm sorry, Santa! Oh man, well that's definitely ruined.
I remember a lot of people hating these episodes back in 2021 for feeling like filler, and I kind of get it, but for the most part, I really don't agree. This is what Amphibia has always been. Wacky adventures with fun characters and great comedy. The only difference now is the setting. I'll never understand why people wanted the show to just be focused on Anne getting back to Amphibia. Like, are you telling me you would rather have a bunch of episodes all doing the same thing of Anne trying and failing to find a way back to Amphibia over and over stories like the Planters learning about and experiencing Thai culture firsthand? A story that shows the ramifications of Anne's disappearance and the strength the community has. Getting back to Amphibia is still a huge focus of these episodes. Again, it's all about that community. Over the course of these episodes, we meet new characters who all come together in the end to get Anne and the Planters back. The only episodes I think we probably could have done without are Spider Sprig and Hollywood Hop Pop. I still think they're fun episodes and didn't deserve the hate, but I do think it would have been better if Spider Sprig was cut to make Olivia and Yunnan a full 22 minutes, and Hollywood Hop Pop got replaced from an episode focusing on Sasha and the Resistance. If you're still worked up about the supposed lack of plot, that was always very obviously there. What are you talking about? I feel like people only view plot as literal events and characters just doing things physically. A plot could be literally just a conversation. There is plot here. The plot is character growth. The plot is Anne's parents recognizing that their daughter has changed. You know, change. Like one of the most prominent themes of the entire show. How is this not plot? I'm not saying this next bit to criticize season 1, because I don't see it as a bad thing. But that was definitely far more episodic than season 3A, so I don't get why these episodes in particular got singled out. And again, how can I not love this season when it has Cloak Bot? This dude is so cool. I love its dedication to its mission, making all those repairs to itself which results in an even cooler design. And Exterminator has some genuinely incredible action that blends together its original Amphibia bits and its new Earth bits. I really wish this wasn't its last appearance. It's so cool and 100 times better than just a bunch of generic Frobots. I've got a feeling this is probably going to be a hot take, but I genuinely like Cloakbot way more than Frobo. It's stealthy, it's slick, its design leads to great fight scenes, it has a really fun personality. I know technically we get some Cloakbots later in All In, but the fact that there's multiple of them together rather than just one robot alone, betrayed by the country he loves, means they have significantly less aura to them. Even if I wish Cloaky stayed around more, giving us a three-way conflict between our heroes, Cloakbot and Mr. X, I do think the way he gets beaten is peak. Anne has already had to deal with it 3 other times, but she was always holding back, mainly because she was still trying to hold the truth about her situation from her parents. She's not able to defeat it until she actually opens up to her parents. She opens up and tells the truth about the real events that happened in Amphibia and how she's feeling about it. It's only when she's honest with herself and the people she loves that she is finally able to take out Cloakbot. Farewell, you beautiful bot. I will now honor you in the best way I know how. Welcome back to this really stupid series where I time how long it took cartoon characters to touch grass. Today, I'll be taking a look at Cloakbot from Amphibia. Here are the rules. Pause if you haven't seen all these videos before. Let's touch grass. Clokey is kind of fucked over by Andreas when it comes to grass touching, as it's forced to follow Anne, and despite her tying for first place with Frobo in my Amphibia grass touching video, she doesn't make it easy. The new normal brings it to a big shop with no grass. There is grass under these trees it knocks over, as can be seen in this earlier shot, but it's not clear if it's actually touching the grass or if it's just touching the trees. So the timer goes on. Fight at the museum forces it into another grassless building, and while the titular temple in Temple Frogs does have plenty of grass around it, Cloakbot was forced into sending some drones to fight for it due to all the damage it had suffered. But then comes Anne's Terminator, and with the imminent threat of self-destruction, Cloakbot says, fuck it, I'm not being subtle anymore. Next time it's seen, it's smashed down in the Boontroy's front yard, touching dirt and grass, granting my beloved Clokey a grass touching time of 9 minutes and 50 seconds. Anyway, here's the updated Amphibia grass touching leaderboard, as well as the full grass touching leaderboard now, yada yada yada, RuPaul is here now. Even if my beloved Cloakbot is gone, Mr. X is still fun as hell. He probably has my favorite animation of any of the human characters. He's even more sleek and smooth than Clokey. And he is superior to Cloakbot in one way. He's got Peridot as a sidekick. Seriously, look at Jenny and tell me they aren't just human Peridot. Alright, I've kind of reached the point where I just need to talk about a bunch of things together because I don't know how to properly flow between my points in a way that lets me structure this video the way I want. So, Ali and Jess are awesome, they're cool and gay, and I love their robot autism.
20 minutes of trailers, and you people call yourselves civilized.
Shut up, Hop Pop! The ads are a vital part of the cinema experience. I take pride in the fact that I can recite the Oscar Williams ad word for word every time I go to see a movie. The ending to Sprig's birthday is so cute. I love these two. I'm a huge cat person, so naturally I find Domino to be dangerously adorable. If You Give a Frog a Cookie is peak for two reasons. One, because Terry is voiced by Kate Masucci, so that means I can reference Sadie, which means I can reference Lars. Fuck you. And two, because of this shot. Okay, I'll get to Froggy Little Christmas soon, but first I need to discuss this iconic fan theory. That being the theory that Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and the Owl House all take place in the same universe. So obviously we have Dr. Frakes opening a portal to the Boiling Isles, but also Bill Cipher appears in the book where Marcy learned about the Calamity Box, a book written by Dr. P. I've seen many people say this could be Dipper, who would be about 20 now, but it could still just be Stanford. Wax Museum does kind of make this all pretty meta, but it doesn't disprove the idea of Gravity Falls being on this Earth. One of the journals appears in Trip to the Archives, which may seem to disprove this theory, as we see the journals get destroyed. But if you buy the official Journal 3 book, you'll know that after Weirdmageddon, Seuss found the journals out in the woods, fully restored, and after a few more entries from Dipper and Ford, Ford says they will be tossing them into the bottomless pit, which doesn't always toss things back out like in the episode. Ford even theorizes the possibility of them ending up in another dimension. Weirdmageddon not affecting how people view these insane events also makes perfect sense, since the town basically gaslit everyone into thinking nothing ever happened. Then there's the newspaper at the end of King's Tide, calling Anne's story a hoax. Well, 10 years later, they're still saying the same thing in Amphibia.
The event we've come to know as Frogvasion. But the real question remains, was it all a hoax?
The events of All In would have happened in early 2020, so it makes perfect sense for Camila later that year to come across that story when doing research into how to get her daughter back from another dimension. There's also so much evidence that Ida was Stan's ex-wife, but that's not really connected to Amphibia, and this tangent has already gone on long enough. So in summary, these shows all take place within the same universe, or at least their Earths do, and you will never convince me otherwise. Alright, it's time to talk about the best episode of the show, Froggy Little Christmas. Despite this being my favorite episode of the show, I don't really have that much to say about it. That's because my reasoning behind loving it so much is quite simple. It's incredibly heartwarming. I talked about the themes of community coming back in Escape to Amphibia, but this episode is probably an even better payoff to that build-up. Yeah, we don't get all the characters back, but I love seeing this small community Anne and the Planters have built up over the last few episodes coming together to make the Ty Go float. It has a lot of emotional weight due to it being the thing that Mrs. Boonchoy had always wanted, but it's a lot more than just her finally achieving the dream that she's had ever since immigrating to the US, of participating in this community event. It's about that community being there for her. Making this a Christmas episode also helps to tie in with those themes. The festive period means many different things for many different people. We get that with all the various explanations given to the planters about what this holiday is all about. But if one word could truly describe what this special time of year is all about, it would be community. Spending time with the people you care about. I do wish we actually got to see and give her mum Pearl's Butterfly instead of Andreas being a loser and showing up and ruining everything, but like I said before, this doesn't take away from the emotion of Hopping Mall's ending. Like Anne says at the end of the episode, Christmas is about the people, not the presents. I will also always adore this episode for being the first time I would hear a Rebecca Sugar song. Our special time of year is really sweet and also genuinely really funny.
A bucket of fried chicken, a costume for your dad, a demon who will stuff you in a sack if you've been bad.
The fact that these lyrics are sung so normally is just hysterical. Escape to Amphibia is another episode I really like. I used to consider it my second favorite episode of the show, and I still do really like it. It's still very fun, and I love seeing all these characters working together, but I unfortunately don't find it that amazing anymore. My biggest issue with it is the way it treats Anne leaving her parents behind. The way the episode is set up, it feels like the episode Handy Anne, but in reverse. It feels like it's going in the direction that her parents will be coming with her, which makes sense given previous episodes like Anne's Terminator, and especially Mr. X, which shows how competent they are in a dangerous situation. I also really don't like that Anne just goes back to her school uniform. Not only does it just not make any sense at all, like girl, you're going to be getting in fights, why would you wear a skirt instead of your shorts? But it also feels wrong on a thematic level. Anne's school uniform was a really great part of her design because it represented how she was always being told what to do. But after all the growth she's gone through and she got back to Earth, she was able to finally wear the clothes that she wanted to wear. But now she's just going back to what she was wearing before. Her regressing back to this old outfit really doesn't fit in with the show's themes of change. Obviously it makes sense to keep her armor, but this really should have been her design for Season 3B. Despite those issues, I still really like this episode. It's still really fun to see all these characters working together. I especially love Terry and Dr. Jan, and the ending confrontation with Mr. X is just so cool. Back when I first saw this, it got me so hyped for what was to come next. To me, Amphibia was at its peak during Season 3A. I did call Season 1 the peak, but that was referring to the entire season, and I feel Season 3A on its own is superior to Season 1. But taking a look at Season 3 as a whole, well... Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen the iconic 2005 DreamWorks animated movie Madagascar? Do you remember the scene after the main cast wash up on the titular island country where Alex and Marty reunite? It's pretty funny, isn't it? Both are so happy to finally see each other again, all in slow motion, but then Alex's mood shifts when he remembers this entire situation was Marty's fault and proceeds to try and kill him. I thought about this scene quite a lot during the build up to the release of Commander Anne, because I knew Anne and Sasha would get a very similar scene. It just made perfect sense. They were such good friends who would be happy to see each other again, but then Anne would remember the last time she was with Sasha.
You're clearly insane if you think I'm gonna let you bully me and everyone else just to get what you want!
I was so excited to see this scene play out, and...
Sasha! You're alive! And in Wartwood? What's going on? What happened?
Oh, that's it? True Colors just isn't brought up for a few minutes, and Anne doesn't even seem that angry? I get that Sasha has changed, but Anne hasn't seen that yet. She should not be so chill. back in 2022, this is when my distaste for Amphibia Season 3B would begin. That being said, after this rewatch, I actually kinda liked this episode. Okay, that's weird. I've always hated this one, but now I find Sasha's characterization to be pretty decent. I don't love it or anything. I still think she needed to face more consequences, and she really needed to end her friendship with Grime, but I don't find her completely insufferable anymore. However, she's still not a good leader, as can be seen in Spryvy. The plot of this episode only happens because Sasha is a complete dumbass. Yeah, Sprig and Ivy aren't completely innocent here, but considering how everyone is well aware of their antics, she really should have predicted that they would go against her orders. Girl, was it really that hard to just say, I'm not splitting you up, I'm splitting Stumpy and Fern up because they've been specifically selected for their tasks due to their unique skills? You don't need to hide anything from them. You're in a secret underground hideout. The enemy isn't gonna hear you. Sorry chat, but I guess me liking Commander Ann was a fluke, because the following episodes are mostly pretty damn bad. Not awful. Sasha's Angels is great when it's focusing on Ann and Sasha. It actually gives us that broken friendship I was wanting out of Commander Ann. But what should be a primary focus of these episodes is sidelined so we can give fucking Toadie the spotlight. I don't even dislike Toadie, but why are we getting an episode centered around him instead of one of the most important dynamics of the story, which really needed more focus? And on top of that, this episode brings back probably my least favorite character of the show. Barry is just an annoying piece of shit. He's not funny, he's not entertaining, he just makes me mad. I forgot he was in this and audibly groaned when he showed up. The only time I get any kind of positive emotional reaction from him is when he's in pain. So thankfully he dies in this. That made me happy. Man, I didn't hate this episode. Okay, it's mostly pretty bad, but even if it should have been the main focus, all of the Ann and Sasha scenes are amazing, and they save it from being completely terrible. But that positivity won't last much longer, because here comes a batch of 7 episodes that make me want to tear my hair out. Ohmtown Road, Mother of Ohms, Grimes People, The Root of Evil, Newts and Tights, Fight or Flight, and The Three Armies. These episodes, they certainly exist. Ohmtown Road could have been a great story about second chances and how it relates to Sasha, if it wasn't for the fact that she already got a second chance and she spat it in Anne's face. Also, Anne, why didn't you bring the pots with you to Amphibia? Just what? Mother of Ohms. Oh god, this sucks. The entire episode is just a complete waste of time, and nothing that happens affects the story or characters in any way. All that happens in it are Hot Pot being old, which, okay, I know. And we get told about some prophecy shit, which, okay, fine. I prefer stories not to do this kind of thing, but I don't hate it. I just wish I didn't have to sit through 9 minutes of absolutely nothing to get to it. Then we get to Grimes Pupil, The Root of Evil, Newts and Tights, and Fight or Flight. All of them share the same problem. They are almost all entirely pointless, with the only exception being Fight or Flight, since Domino 2 would at least play a role in the final few episodes, even though they could probably have been rewritten very easily without her. The other 3 though? Why the fuck are they here? We get 3 episodes about building up this army, only for the Toads and Newts to only be a distraction, something that the Wardwood Resistance could have done all by themselves. Why do we even need an episode about the Toads joining up with the Frogs? Grime already got the trust of the other towers when he got Barrel's Warhammer. And what are the Newts going to do? They were just a small group.
Sasha keeps saying we need help with our battle strategy. And who's better at strategy than you?
Oh, I see. So Trentonio is going to be a strategist for the army. No, this doesn't go anywhere. Him being a strategist isn't brought up again. And don't get me started on the Root of Evil. At least the Toads and Newts existed after their episodes. Here is the total screen time that Gary and any of the other mushroom guys get after the Root of Evil.
All right, Fido, set 'em!
That's it. That's all they got. 18 seconds. What was the point? Also, Anne brings up the other mind control mushrooms being used by Andreas, and this is a big deal to Gary. So you'd think this would be very obvious setup that would get payoff. Well, fuck you! Because of course it goes nowhere. But then there's the three armies. My least favorite episode of the show. It is nothing. I didn't like Mother of Ohms, but at least in that, the resolution was somewhat set up and actually shown. In this episode, everyone just spends the entire time hating each other and tells them to fuck off, and then they solve all their problems off screen. That's it. That's the episode. It doesn't even have any good jokes. These episodes piss me off so much. Not only do they hardly have any substantial plot developments, but they don't even have anything to say about the characters except Hop Pop is old and he likes plants. The character we learn the most about is goddamn Domino 2. She still likes Anne. Okay, that's something I guess. But where were the episodes exploring Anne and Sasha's broken friendship? Where were the episodes set back on Earth, showing what happened with the Boon Choice and Mr. Rex after escape to Amphibia? And why was the Core and the King not a full 22 minutes? Chat, I'm tired. I was really hoping to enjoy these episodes more, but outside of Turning Point and Commander Anne, my opinions haven't really changed much since 2022. Normally, I wouldn't get this angry over a cartoon made for kids, but for 2.5 seasons, Amphibia was just so brilliant. To see it take such a nosedive in quality is really upsetting. It's such a downgrade even from just the last half of this very season. Season 3A also had Anne and the Planters constantly meeting new characters who would all come together in the end. Except this time, all the characters had substantial roles that affected the story. Terry and Dr. Jen built the portal to get them back. And Humphrey and the ladies from the Thai Temple help sneak Molly Jo in, who's able to hack into the FBI using a device provided by Ali and Jess. Everyone gets a role to play that specifically correlates to their unique traits, but we don't get that in Season 3B. I'm not mad at a kids show being bad. I'm mad at a show that was great falling so far from what made it so good in the first place. Alright. Time to talk about Olivia and Yunnan and the Core and the King. Now, with Olivia and Yunnan, yeah, my opinions haven't really shifted. But that opinion was always mostly positive, like the Core and the King, which I will get to, don't worry. I think it would have greatly benefited from being 22 minutes instead of 11. It could have done a lot more with the maternal-like bond Olivia has with Marcy, and involves Yunnan herself more with it, really emphasizing the characters the episode is named after, making them out to be the kind of parents Marcy's always dreamed of. This bigger focus on mothers would also make Olivia's fear of her own mother's disappointment in her hit harder. Plus, we could have gotten a deeper exploration into Yunnan's fears other than just a joke. This isn't to say what we got wasn't good, I just think it could have been a lot better. But my big issue with this episode comes with one singular character. Not Darcy, I really like their inclusion, and children's shows should scare the shit out of kids more. The character I take the most issue with is Andreas. So, first off, what the fuck is your goal, man? In true colors, he goes on about returning Neutopia to glory, which, okay, that makes sense. He's a colonizer. He's going to go to other worlds, deprive them of their resources to bring back to his own world. Except now he's destroying his own world? Why is he doing this? If it's to gather resources to invade Earth, the show doesn't do a good enough job showing that. We don't really see much of an improvement in his militaristic force from True Colors to All In, so it just seems like he doesn't care about his own world. The first temple ends with him saying,
"Soon, we will have our revenge."
Who? Who are you getting revenge on? Is this meant to be about Leaf? Dude, she's fucking dead. What are your goals and motivations, man? You're so inconsistent. And don't get me started on his little sob story. Oh boo-hoo, there was nothing you could do to stop yourself from manipulating, murdering, resurrecting, and torturing a child. Bullshit, man. You like doing this. You clearly are having so much fun being an evil piece of shit. Did your daddy tell you to be goofy when committing genocide? Yeah, I don't buy it. I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. Andreas is almost entirely carried by the performance of Keith David. It's pretty much impossible for him to give a performance that's less than great. Going back to the mother thing, I think it also could have been more parents in general, and that way the show could have better fleshed out Andreas' relationship with his father. Now, The Core and the King is another episode that I do like. It's probably where I think Andreas is the best written. Unlike the rest of the show, his motivations actually make sense, which makes him feel a lot more natural. Wait, what the fuck? Huh? No. You can't do that! You can't just introduce a new character who we only knew as an old friend of Andreas with a single picture, and then after just a few seconds say, oh yeah, she's a planter by the way. Like, holy shit, slow down! I don't have an issue with Leaf being a planter. It was set up with things like the underground bunker, Sprig's pink skin, and Hop Pop's book with information on the Calamity box. But the way it was revealed is so jarring. We should have at least gotten a full scene with her before she performs the Planter family hunting dance. I also just find Leaf to be really stupid. I can understand not telling Andreas she was going to steal the box in case his father overheard him, but if you really wanted to send him a letter, why would you leave the letter in a locked room, in a bunker, under your new house, in some random small town? No shit it wasn't gonna get to him. Girl, just go back after old Rick dies. He was going to die soon. You absolutely could have. Also, what's the point of Brawl? You'd think how he was set up in Brawl's Warhammer, that he would have a lot more impact, but instead he just exists. His biggest impact on the story is that Grime has his hammer. Andreas had the potential to be amazing, but if I wanted a story about an alien villain voiced by Keith David who wields a glowing sword, was introduced in the second part of a trilogy, eventually sees how his superiors have manipulated him so he finally decides to side with humanity and help a green and blue person take down a hive mind, I'd replay Halo. I do like this episode. Andreas is well written here, because you can actually see the struggles he faces between doing what he wants and what his father wants when his father isn't there. Meanwhile, in every other episode, that struggle is just completely absent when the core isn't talking to him. I also really like the little bits of the present with Darcy. Darcy is just a much better villain than Andreas, because at least they make sense. They're very simple, they know what they want. It's pretty hard to fuck up this kind of antagonist. They also eat ube frosted cupcakes, and that reminds me of Lars, which makes me happy. I'm sorry for being so negative. I've always struggled to see these episodes as anything more than just good, I guess. But I remember the beginning of the end being pretty good. Maybe I'll like that. I like most of it, but it starts out really rough. This opening flashback just doesn't work for me. It feels very forced. The episode wants to say that Anne and Sasha were really neglectful of Marcy's interests, but the show hasn't really established that. In fact, it's actually established the complete opposite.
Did you know this entire town is built on top of a swamp but never sinks? That's because the designers knew exactly how heavy to make everything.
That's a cool fact. What else you learn?
But I'm more upset with how Sasha acts. This rewatch made me appreciate her character a lot more, but her getting so angry with Marcy here is both hypocritical and out of character. What Marcy did was wrong, but it was never attempted murder wrong. And what happened to all that shit about second chances in Hometown Road? Sasha, shut up! And then the rest of the episode is really good, mostly due to the fight scenes having really awesome animation. And even though I hate the way Sasha acts at the beginning, I can accept it because it led to a really nice callback to Anne and Hop Pop's broken and later repaired trust from the last season. But never mind that, it's finally time for the two-part finale. Despite my history of hating the hardest thing, I've always liked All In, but that is no longer true. Because now, I love it. Is it perfect? No. The characters escaping at the start relies on Darcy and Andreas being incredibly stupid, but most of my complaints are extremely nitpicky. All In is fucking sick. It's just back-to-back peak action, hilarious comedy, and great emotional beats. I used to take issue with how Marcy scenes were done, and while I still think it would have been cool to see Marcy and Darcy talking to each other inside her mind, I don't think Marcy needed a big dramatic moment where she overcomes the Core's control over her body, because that's not really what her character arc has been about. It was about accepting her reality, so having her simply accept the truth is a much more satisfying ending than her fighting Darcy to win control of her body back. Sasha fighting Darcy is way more satisfying because Sasha's arc has been about changing herself for the better, and Darcy is the perfect character to represent her fighting her past self. This episode is so good at giving everyone a moment to shine. Marcy, Sasha, and the Planters all get one truly peak scene that brings a giant smile to my face. And speaking of smiles, even through all this destruction, Amphibia can never not be funny as fuck. Like with the insane speed of the military arriving on the scene, or the background humans continuing to prove they're the funniest characters in the show.
Huh, well, that doesn't seem so bad.
But funniest doesn't mean best, because the real best character of Amphibia is of course its incredible protagonist, Anne Boonchoi. Would her love of K-pop being established earlier on in the series make the scene hit harder? Yeah, it would, but I don't care. The amount of euphoria I get from watching everyone cheering her on, giving her the strength to beat that old dude's ass, is impossible to describe. It was like I was hooked up to a machine that rapidly pumps me full of a year's worth of joy in just seconds. Andreas being a cyborg is dumb. Like, why? The only reason is so Anne doesn't kill him, but like, you could have just made Anne not blast completely through him. But this episode is over, and there's only one more to go. The hardest thing. An episode I have made very clear over the years that I do not like in the slightest. I've always hated this episode, and despite some of my opinions on Season 3B going up on this rewatch, I doubt I will ever change my mind. Like, come on, it's so bad! Because, Anne dies immediately and then comes back. That's really, it's not that bad. The prophecy shit is dumb because why set it up as a prophecy and then not make it a prophecy last minute? Why are Percy and Braddock here? And you never met them. Andrew's so stupid. He should have died because I hate him. This episode sucks so much and it's just a bunch of really good animation. And I'm actually fucking crying like a lot. And TJ Hill gives his best track of the show. Oh, fuck! Chat, it happened. For 3.5 years, I have been the biggest hater of this episode. But I was a fool.
You are the biggest moron I have ever met!
I have finally seen the light and can now answer the question, was I wrong about Amphibia? Yes. I don't think I can say I love The Hardest Thing, but I absolutely like it and give it a solid 7 out of 10. Andreas absolutely deserved a harsher punishment. Sasha and Marcy getting powers was kind of pointless when Anne really did everything in the end. And Valerina is made really stupid in retrospect for almost letting Anne keep her full powers when she believed she wasn't worthy. But I'm gonna choose to believe that she's actually the Guardian of the Stones in a mortal form or something, planning everything from the shadows. Otherwise, I'll go mad. I guess that plan also included Anne dooming all of Amphibia by destroying its moon. And I know it needs an insane amount of power to work, but come on Terry, you could absolutely build a new portal. Get working, Blue Heron pronouns! I swear to Frog, if the Strange Voyage comic ends with a page like that final scene from Monsters Inc. with adult Anne opening a portal and seeing Sprig, I will become a sobbing mess. But for now, I'll just remain a sobbing mess from this episode 3 times in a row. First, when TJ Hill's aforementioned best track in the show starts playing as the girls begin to beat the shit out of the Core's forces. Second, when Anne sacrifices herself. And third, just before the credits begin. When I first watched this, I genuinely laughed out loud at Anne's death. I thought it was the dumbest shit ever. What's even the point if she's obviously gonna come back? And yeah, it still is kinda dumb, but it says a lot about how much Anne has grown to protect these silly little amphibians she used to be grossed out by. And I especially love that her dying words are a joke.
My only regret is that I never got to see Lovejoy's do.
Sprig's reaction tells all. She may have matured, but that doesn't mean she can't still be her goofy self. Someone who cares for Sprig and knows him well enough to know how to comfort him without just saying something boring like it's going to be okay. The Guardian of the Stones is a weird character. There used to be a big reason for me hating the episode. I thought they were kind of a bit too out there and didn't really fit in with the show, but I've since come round to them. I hadn't watched Steven Universe when I first saw this, so now I can go, holy shit, it's Ruby!
No! Don't do this to me, kid. You're the only mortal who qualifies. You're perfect. You're right! You're always right! I was being stupid!
But more importantly, I did pick up more of the setup towards them. They're the natural endpoint for a lot of the way this show has discussed topics about people messing with power they aren't worthy of. Magic obviously exists in this world, not just normal spells and shit, but more supernatural, mythical creatures like the Mossman, Shadowfish, and of course there's the music box itself. The villains of the show always show a clear disrespect for the natural order, and with how this world's nature is inherently magical, it only makes sense that there's some higher being influencing it. And of course they would want to thank the girl who saved their world. Plus, my new headcanon that Valerina is actually the Guardian definitely helps me like them a lot more. The only aspect of this that I would change is don't do the whole making a copy of Anne. Just say that this is Anne. I know people would say it makes Anne's sacrifice pointless, but it already kind of feels like that. I just prefer to ignore the fact that the original Anne is actually dead, because that's just needlessly upsetting. But what's not needlessly upsetting is the ending, for many reasons. Yes, it's sad, but it just goes to show how powerful Anne's connection with these silly frogs is. That they don't just change for the better, but that change stays solidified within them, even years later. I originally thought this was really stupid. Amphibia is both a story about change and manipulation, and I was focusing too much on the aspect of manipulation, standing up to those who manipulated you and forming new, healthier relationships. I guess I kinda just saw Anne leaving that new, healthier relationship as going against the show's themes. And while I definitely still think aspects of this idea could have been done better, what we got still fits what the show has been about. Anne was only able to let herself trust Sasha again after Sasha herself proved she deserved it. Marcy doesn't end up forgiving Andreas, and the Calamity Trio doesn't even hold a strong friendship when they return, since they would obviously take very different paths in life, something that obviously happens to real people. I've had friends I haven't seen in years because of us taking different paths, and you can't always control which path you take, whether it's your parents moving because of a job, or you used up all the juice in your interdimensional music box. It's hard to say goodbye, but those bonds, how they change us, they can never be fully erased. And eventually, maybe, you'll find a way back to each other. Okay, please, I was kind of joking before, but Strange Voyage, you need to give me Spread Reunion. At least show me the portal. I am begging you, Matt Brawley. I'm sorry for what I said all these years. I need this! Ah! You live here, Canon. Nice. Wow. I was not expecting that. Going into this, I thought I would still hate Amphibia's ending, but I would simply articulate my opinion much better. However, I actually really liked it. Season 3B is still by far the weakest part of the show. My opinion on most of these episodes have honestly gone down now, but the actual finale, I think it's pretty good. Again, not perfect, but I like it. This rewatch truly reignited my love for Amphibia. I recently got my hands on The Art of Amphibia and Marcy's journal, and I've been loving reading through them. I especially loved learning that Marcy Regina Wu has canonically committed manslaughter, or newt slaughter, I guess. I don't really have that much else to say. I think I might make a sequel to my Amphibia Touching Grass video sometime this year, but for now, I'll end this video by giving you all my Amphibia episode ranking. So starting from the bottom and going up, The Three Armies, The Root of Evil, Fight or Flight, Newts and Tights, Mother of Olms, Children of the Spore, Grimes' Pupil, Olmtown Road, Cursed, Sasha's Angels, The Big Bug Ball Game, Hollywood Hop Pop, Sprivey, The Domino Effect, Sprig vs. Hop Pop, Hop Pop and Lock, The Shut-In, Spider Sprig, Night Drivers, Qualler's Pass, Cracking Mrs. Croaker, Family Fishing Trip, Civil Wart, A Night at the Inn, Toad to Redemption, Friend or Frobo, Dating Season, The Planters Check In, Truck Stop Polly, Croak and Punishment, The Core and the King, Return to Wartwood, Fiddle Me This, Ivy on the Run, Sprig Gets School, Planters Last Stand, Hopluck, Fort in the Road, Grubhog Day, Kane Crazy, The Beginning of the End, Goal Time, The Ballad of Hopadiah Planter, Lost in Utopia, Tie Feud, Bessie and Microangelo, Flood, Sweat and Tears, Hop Teardrop, Hop Popular, Maddie and Marcy, Sprig's Birthday, Fixing Frobo, Adventures in Cat Sitting, A Caravan Named Desire, Bizarre Bazaar, The Sleepover to End All Sleepovers, Little Frog Town, Swamp and Sensibility, Olivia and Yunnan, Commander Ann, Scavenger Hunt, Contagion, Ann Hunter, Snow Day, Stakeout, Breakout Star, Escape to Amphibia, True Colors, The Dinner, Barrel's Warhammer, The Third Temple, New Wartwood, The Second Temple, The First Temple, Family Shrub, The Hardest Thing, Wax Museum, Combat Camp, Taking Charge, Toadcatcher, Wally and Ann, Handy Ann, Battle of the Bands, A Trip to the Archives, Prison Break, Fight at the Museum, If You Give a Frog a Cookie, Ann of the Year, Best Fronds, Mr. X, Lilypad Tie, Ann vs. Wild, Ann or Beast, Temple Frogs, and Sterminator After the Rain. And finally, the top 10, Ann Theft Auto, Turning Point, All In, The New Normal, Marcy at the Gates, Toad Tax, A Day at the Aquarium, Reunion, Hopping Mall, Froggy Little Christmas. And with that, it's finally over. I never have to run away from a Disney Channel cartoon with a 13-year-old Thai American girl protagonist who befriends a guy whose name starts with an S and had a finale that everyone loved but I hated. Oh, wait a second!
The Ghost and Molly McGee!